Hi, this is Dr. Gary Sprouse, the Less Stress Doc, and we're here on the Happiness Highway podcast. And this podcast is set up for you, helping you get to your happiness highway and stay on it and getting rid of all the stresses in your life. And I'm joined with my wife, Terri. Hey,
Hi.
Terri. She's the one that's helping me stay on my happiness highway and getting rid of the stress in my life. So thank you for that, right?
Drive on Happiness Highway.
All right, so today we have a guest, Nikki Walton. She has her own podcast called Operational Harmony. And I'm going to let her help us figure out what Operational Harmony does. Tell us what that podcast is about.
Operational Harmony is a podcast that is a balance between business and mental well-being. Each episode has a business and a mental health topic so that people can get better at both of those things.
Okay. So then your guests, they either do one half or the other. They either do business or they do mental health?
Yeah, and I do the other half, whichever is.
So tell me about your business experience. What got you started on doing that?
I have been in business for myself since 2018 when I got my brain back. I do social media. I'm an operations manager, so I kind of do all the things for solopreneurs so that they can get back in their business.
Wait, you said something about 2018 and getting your brain back?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I had something happen in 2008 that shattered my brain, shattered my mind. It was very traumatic. And so I was in a very deep fog of depression for a very lot of years. And when I finally got my brain back and could actually think without being overwhelmed by the slightest thing, I started to be able to help somebody that I knew. He was a roofer. And so if he did it all himself, he'd have to go home and spend another, 3 or 4 hours doing proposals and stuff like that.
Welcome to solo entrepreneurship, yeah.
He would call me 100 times a day to do this, that, or the opposite thing. Like, he would tell me the inspection report or whatever that he wanted to do, and I would type it up for him as he talked so that he didn't have to do any of that when he got home. And now I still do that for him and others now that I'm, fully on board.
I'm sure that guy's like, thank you. Like, you've made my life way easier, right? So where'd the podcast come from?
I've had 2 or 3 different therapists say that I should write a book. And I thought that would be too hard. So I decided to do a podcast.
And has that been hard or what?
I probably should have wrote a book because it would have taken a lot less time. I am enjoying the process of having the podcast and, talking with people and learning new things for myself and having those resources available for others.
My wife has been involved with me doing both of those things, writing a book and doing a podcast. So what do you think about that? Which is easier?
For me,
Sure.
you writing the book, because I really didn't do anything. The podcast, here I am.
Yeah. Exactly.
The book, really, that was you. 100% you.
All right. Well, I know, but you edited stuff.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Somewhat, yeah.
When I wrote the book, I had a focus group, and there was about 20, 30 people that I'd given the book, and some of them had read it, some of them hadn't, but it was like, that I want to get their feedback on, what was strong in the book, what wasn't strong. You're so immersed in it that you kind of lose perspective, and you think what you're saying makes sense, but everybody else is like, wait, what did you just say? So yeah, it's an interesting process. I will say that a podcast is easier to do in that it's easier to work out. The book, it takes a lot more background work. So by the time you get to the finished product, there's a whole lot of stuff that went back that was behind all what people actually read. One of the things you mentioned to me when we had talked earlier was about a social anxiety. And the podcast, you're out there way more because you're right in front of people talking. A lot of them tend to be loners and they just like staying in their room writing their book. So when someone says, hey, you have to go out on somebody's podcast or you have to go do something in front of the public, they're like, wait, what? I thought I just had to write the book. So kudos to you for getting in front of a camera and doing a podcast.
I constantly try to stay a little uncomfortable so that I keep moving forward, because for me, anyway, if I get too comfortable, I'll stay where I am and nothing gets done.
One of our other guests, that's exactly his line, is don't get too comfortable. Like, push yourself, get out of your comfort zone, basically. And he'd been doing that his whole life, and he was recommending that to other people. And you're right, you do get kind of stuck in a rut.
Oh, I am firmly in a rut. I am very firmly in a rut. I only leave my house twice a week. I work all the time. I have my stuff that I do, but I kind of like doing this, not the same exact thing all the time, but like I have a rut that I'm in, but I'm still uncomfortable in that rut. I don't get too comfortable. You know how in the morning your bed is super comfortable and warm, especially right now when it's cold out? You don't want to leave. If I get too comfortable, that's exactly what will happen. I'll end up stuck in bed.
So I can see that there's two pieces to that process. One is recognizing that you're in a rut. And I'm not even sure rut's the right word to use. It sounds like you're just like in a comfort zone.
In a pattern or a comfort zone. Yeah, comfort zone.
Yeah, rut sounds like negative. Like it sounds like I'm in a bad place and I can't get out of it. Comfort zone sounds more like I'm comfortable with what I'm doing, but I'm kind of stagnating. Would that be a word to use?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could be.
Yeah. All right, so once you recognize that you're in that place, what do you do to get out of it?
The first step to everything is recognizing it. The second part is asking yourself why you got there. Why am I here? Is it because I have a family member who constantly puts me in this spot? Is it because I myself don't ever get out of my comfort spot and that's why I'm stuck? You know, you have to figure that part out. And that may take therapy, or you may be able to do it yourself. And then once you know why you're there, that's when you can build the bridge to get out.
So do you like rip the covers off and just jump out and go, I'm here? Or do you kind of gradually ease out of the bed?
It's more of a, oh, I gotta get up. I have a meeting in 10 minutes. I have to get up kind of a thing. I'm not a morning person, so getting out of bed is one of those things I usually have to do in a hurry because I have a meeting in like 20 minutes.
And so you mentioned writing a book. Is that something that would be in the horizon? Would that be something that gets you out of that comfort zone?
Right now, the podcast is taking up all my time because I don't have people helping me with it. I do all my own editing. I don't have the time with my work to be able to write a book at the moment, but it may in the future be a thing.
Is there specific things that you do when you're feeling stressed out? Or are there specific actions that you take? A lot of the people that are listening to the show have the same kind of problems that you're talking about. Wherever they're at, they're comfortable, or maybe they're not comfortable, but they're either afraid or don't know how to get out of that situation.
For me, the thing I had to do was distract my mind. So I game and I read. Those are the two things I do to get myself out of my own head and away from it for a while, because then once you're done, and I'm not saying game for 72 hours in a row or anything, you know, I game for like an hour or two at night if I'm not too busy or tired from working. But that allows me time to concentrate on something else that isn't me. And then once I'm done with that and I'm back to, okay, I'm in my own head, I can take that time and reevaluate and figure things out because I'm not as stressed about what's going on in my own head.
Sometimes helping other people helps yourself, because you tend to look at other people's concerns and issues and problems with a different set of eyeballs than you do your own. And yeah, so sometimes helping other people is a way of helping yourself, even if it's volunteering at a nonprofit organization, or just helping a friend, as she was saying, with the guy with the roofing. Just doing something for somebody else. You might think you're helping them, but in reality, you're really helping yourself.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned gaming, because we were just down in Atlanta. My stepson, your son, he does the same kind of thing. Now, but here's the problem that he gets into. This is the danger of gaming. He's not doing 72 hours in a row, but he's doing it long enough that his girlfriend's complaining. And she's like, you're going down there again. He has a little man cave downstairs. And it's like, so he goes down there, and you can see that he's going down there to relax and calm down and get out of his head. But then he stays there too long, and then it starts causing problems. Is there a way that you avoid getting into that where you're overdoing it?
You can set alarms. I don't have a problem with that because the people I game with will be like, okay, I have to take a break. I'll be back later. I don't have people that I game with that are going to make it take too long. But if you do have that problem, I would suggest setting an alarm or getting a girlfriend that games so that you can do it together.
There you go. Yeah. What game do you play?
I play several, but World of Warcraft and Sea of Thieves are the two main ones.
So one of the things that I talk about is what I call a stress reducer loop. And so the stress reducer, so gaming for you is a stress reducer. And for you, it's not turning into a loop. The loop occurs when the stress reducer starts causing stress. And that's where my stepson's at. So he's playing a game to try and relax and de-stress. But he's sitting there like too long, and now he knows his girlfriend's gonna yell at him, and he's like, now he's getting upset. And so the stress reducer is causing stress, which then makes him do the stress reducer more. So he ends up in this loop. And so to get out of it, my answer to him was like, look, set a timer would be an idea, right? And say, hey, I'm gonna go down for 2 hours, which then says to his girlfriend, don't bug me for 2 hours. But then he has to get out in 2 hours. Like, you can't go, oh, it's 3 hours and I'm still playing, right?
That's a big thing for me, is if you tell me you're going to do something, do it, or we're going to have problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's, we've been learning that, unfortunately, right? So we all have some like emotional baggage. And I don't know if you're willing to share some of the baggage you've had and ways that you've gotten rid of the baggage, or...
I struggle with a couple of mental illnesses because of the way I was raised. My mother was a narcissist who was medically neglectful. And then I lived with another person who was the same way after all that stuff happened in 2008. Because of that, I do have a ton of not just mental health problems, but baggage. But I have been stepping away from it because I have learned that the things that happen were not my fault. The way I was raised was not my fault. The way I was treated in certain places and times of my life were not my fault. Some of them were my choices that I made, and there were consequences for that. But not the entire situation was my fault. There were other people at play. There were other people doing things. Once you can realize that, you can separate yourself from what happened and start to heal. I am not fully healed. That may never happen, but I am starting. I am getting better all the time. I am working with actually 2 therapists that I appreciate highly because they help me to see where like something I'm doing that is bothering me is because of something that happened before. And I can go, oh, wait, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to treat people like that. I don't want to do that thing. So I can recognize the problem and then find a solution to step away from it.
So there's a book that I had read a couple months ago. It was called The Body Keeps Score. I don't know if you've had a chance to read that or not. A lot of people should read that book because it talks about the traumas that we've had in our past and how that we've put those in our memory banks and how that changes. A normal memory is like there's a story and there's words and there's a beginning and middle and end. But a traumatic event doesn't have any of that. And so it's much more lower part of our brain, so there's no words there. There's just emotional snippets and there's just little pictures or this or that. And so it's much harder to deal with because we can't deal with it in a more rational way because it's deeper down. So that book gives a lot of insight into what the problem is, and then it also has the last 100 pages on how to fix it. So I'd recommend that book to the audience. If you've read it, great. If you haven't, you might want to pick it up because it's a really good book.
I did hear about that when I was reviewing for the podcast, but I haven't read it yet.
If there was anything that you could change, like if you went back and talked to your younger self, would there be any things that you would do different? Or is there any advice you'd give to your younger you?
Not everybody is there to help. Some people are there to hurt. Some people don't care about you at all, though they pretend they do, because some of the situations I was in because of that. But I couldn't change anything that happened in my life because the things that happened led to good things, but also bad things. The good things I appreciate and the bad things I learned from. So I wouldn't be me if I changed anything.
There was a lady I'd met and she talked about being on a bus and there's a negative part of her that thought she wasn't worthy of being, of where she was. And at the end of her, not the end, but somewhere in her journey, she decided that she needed to get rid of that part of her. And then she goes, wait, that part of me that said, hey, you're not good enough, spurred me on to do things that I wouldn't have done except for that part. So what she said was, okay, well, you get to stay on the bus, but you don't get to drive anymore. And I was like, I like that line, right? Because as you said, all these things, they're part of the fabric that makes us who we are. And so even though we would like to get rid of them, they actually are part of the fabric that makes us what we are. And so, yeah, you don't need to get rid of them, but you don't really want them driving the bus anymore either. So Nikki, I usually give a guest a chance to say, hey, tell the audience something, I mean, there's a closing message that you have for the audience.
To find your happy place, you have to look back at the bad times in life. It's not an easy process. So take the time that's needed, but then move forward and stop looking back.
I mean, you're right. The past is there. You can't change the past. You can change your perception of the past. I would give that, right? When we were driving to Atlanta, we got a flat tire. And we could have focused on the negative part of that. Oh, we're out in the middle of Gastonia, North Carolina, and we don't have a spare tire because the car is made on these run flat tires. The manufacturer doesn't even put a spare in. You're like, wait, what, right? So we could have focused on all the negativity of that, but we chose to turn the picture around and go, wait, we live in this amazing world where we were a mile away from a gas station. We used our amazing phone. We called AAA. They sent somebody to where we were. They picked up our car. They drove us to a place to get a new tire. We went to somewhere else and got dinner, and by the time we got back, the tire was changed, and we paid with a piece of plastic.
The tire store had a tire in our size, just waiting for us. That's happened where you go and you need a new tire, and they don't have your size. Oh, it'll be here tomorrow. Well, tomorrow wasn't going to help us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because my wife was like, "We're going to be in Gastonia for 2 more days because they're not going to have a tire." Like, anyway, so fortunately it worked out.
Yep.
We couldn't change what happened, but we could change how we viewed what happened, and that made a big difference. So instead of a story of negativity, we told the story of like the wonder of our world. That all that could happen in 3 hours, and we were back on the road and got back to our stepson's house. So yeah.
You got lucky. We got a flat tire in Texas, but it was right next to a gas station, so that part was good. But they did not have the tire in our size, so we had to get a hotel for the night, and they got it the next morning.
But even so, right? But so there's a hotel right there that you can go stay. Somebody's like, with a little piece of plastic, you go, hey, can I stay in your place? You're like, yeah, right? Yeah, you didn't have to stay in the manger. It was good, right? Well, Nikki, I want to thank you so much for being on the show with us today. So I want you to listen to Nikki's podcast. It's Operational Harmonies, business, mental health, good stuff, right? So thank you for being on the show. Terri, thanks for being here with me.
Welcome.
It's always great.
It was nice meeting you, Nikki.
Nice meeting you too.
So thank you for listening. If you like the show, subscribe. If you have some specific questions or some feedback, you can get me on the lessstresseddoc.com or email me at lessstresseddoc@gmail.com. And I got these 2 books, The Highway to Your Happy Place, A Roadmap to Less Stress, and Mindset Matters, and they're both available. So I just got some good news that I'm going to be presenting at the International Summit on Anxiety, Depression, and Stress Management, and it's in Paris, France. Yay! My wife gets to come with me, so we'll be presenting there and talking about stress management. So thanks for listening in, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with a new episode.
Drive on.